In a small, busy corner of a room, a young man is intensely focused on something, while another character seems to be speaking to him. Yuichiro Hayakuya slams his hand down in frustration, declaring he doesn't care if the person he's speaking to is a vampire, only that they would still kill him. Michaela Hayakuya, looking downcast and troubled, coldly tells him he's busy transforming and not to talk to him until he's done. A long shot of an eerie, high-tech waiting or control room shows several empty chairs, with one character sitting alone, seemingly ignoring the warnings about the horrors within this secret space. Michaela glares ahead, challenging the point of looking up all the dark secrets and horrible things he's just learned. Yuichiro answers with a fierce declaration. The reason is to grow stronger and personally eliminate all those stupid bloodsuckers. As they walk past a grand building, a character asks how the other will know if he doesn't try, and tells him to follow his ridiculous, self-absorbed plan just this once. Yuichiro defiantly declares that it's okay to risk being deceived, as he just wants to save the human race from the monsters, unaware of what he truly is. He argues back, questioning who cares if he's deceiving himself as long as he gets stronger in the end. Yuichiro stares intently at the other, holding up a small, dark syringe and ordering the person to stay still. The smaller panels show Yuichiro quickly injecting the substance into the other character's neck, who reacts in surprise and pain. The two characters stand close together with one gripping the other's chin, as a third character warns the one who administered the injection not to move. A figure in the shadows speaks with an intense, close-up expression, declaring that the target now possesses the ability to kill all vampires. Michaela and Yuichiro sit close together in a strange, striped room, both looking distressed as Michaela speaks, and Yuichiro stays silent. A wide, empty shot of a tiled floor emphasizes the silence and isolation of the room, marked by only a few stray drips or splatters. Michaela clings to Yuichiro, his face contorted in pain and discomfort, while Yuichiro holds him tightly in return. The view drops low to the floor, showing one character's leg planted on the ground, with a large, pained ARGH sound effect dominating the scene. Yuichiro stares out with a desperate expression, yelling that he cannot take this agony anymore. Michaela looks down, asking Yuichiro what he has done, as he feels the blood coursing through his body, heating up uncontrollably. Yuichiro explains the horrible truth, that the injection was a drug to make him a stronger human to defeat the vampires, not a cure for his transformation. Michaela recoils in disgust and betrayal, stating that Yuichiro is no different from the adults who had exploited and manipulated him before. Yuichiro yells at the distraught Michaela, trying to explain that he's doing this to protect him, even as Michaela begs him to stop. Yuichiro turns away, his face etched with resolve, and states that he will perform this painful act 10,000 times a day if he must. Yuichiro declares with certainty that no human can hope to beat a vampire with sheer strength alone. As Michaela writhes in pain, he clutches his head and cries out, asking what this substance is and what Yuichiro has done to him. Yuichiro stares down, defending his actions as being for the benefit of the human race, while Michaela pleads for him to stop what he is doing. Yuichiro stands over Michaela with a determined expression, while Michaela looks up in despair, whispering a single, helpless, but. In a split panel, the two are joined by their comrades who look on with concern, while Michaela stares ahead, completely lost in his own thoughts. A beautiful, long-haired figure in ornate clothing appears, addressing a shocked Michaela and asking him about his injured hand. Michaela turns his head slightly, a cold expression on his face, and simply utters the words, "Lord Ferret." Yuichiro's comrades stare in shock and confusion at the appearance of the new, elegant figure, while Yuichiro stands beside them with a serious expression. The long-haired figure, Ferret, leans in with a cruel smile, casually asking Michaela if he will be coming to his mansion tonight. Michaela glares back at Ferret, giving a short, cold refusal. "Dip it, man." Ferret, completely unperturbed, then asks Michaela if he would like to join him for a meal tonight, reminding him that the delicious blood he needs is waiting. Ferret bends down with a sinister smile and a hand held out to a distraught Michaela, offering him the delicious blood of a small child. Yuichiro stares in horror, his eyes wide as he screams at the vampire to stay away. Ferret, still holding the child, turns his back to the group and apologizes with a smirk, claiming the boy is still too playful. Ferret raises an eyebrow with a wry smile, acting surprised that the small boy is playful and mockingly calling the situation a pity. Michaela replies to the vampire with a crisp, "Yes, sir," prompting Ferret to declare that he will see him again that night. Yuichiro turns to Michaela with a horrified expression, asking if he is seriously letting the vampire drink his blood. A character turns around to walk away from Michaela, who is standing alone, and answers, "Yes, I am," then asks if there's a problem with that. Michaela stands firm, coldly telling Yuichiro that as long as he gives the vampire his blood, the noble will buy him anything he wants. Michaela explains that even among vampires, Lord Ferret has a noble pedigree, and to survive, one has to be smart and clever in the end. With a massive pow, a figure punches the ground near a small creature that recoils from the force. Yuichiro turns away from Michaela, stating he'd rather die than be used like livestock for the vampire's blood. Yuichiro furiously argues that he doesn't want anything from the vampire, even when Michaela offers a gift with the money he received. Michaela looks away, a silent picture of despair and deep unhappiness. Yuichiro clutches his head in anguish and disbelief, groaning and exclaiming that he can't believe the situation. A tall, pale female figure smiles with cruel amusement, noting Yuichiro is there again, as he stares up at her in shock. In a brief exchange outside a large building, a character is warned not to talk to their companions, who are then told to wait outside. Yuichiro turns his head with a frustrated expression, telling the tall female figure that the issue is none of her business. The tall figure laughs off the comment with a cheerful, "It's okay," but then firmly tells Yuichiro to just leave her alone. The female figure smiles with a sinister look, adding a chilling justification to her command. She no longer has a family. Yuichiro stares with a look of devastation, his eyes wide and dark, as he denies the woman's claim by stating that he doesn't have a family either. Yuichiro's denial is immediately cut off by a memory of a past figure, who confirms that the tall woman speaks the truth. A small snow-covered building labeled the Hyakuya Orphanage is shown on a dark night, with a speech bubble indicating it's Christmas and they've become a family. Inside, a kind woman in an apron holds a young boy and smiles, explaining that everyone here is part of their new family. Two young boys, Yuichiro and Michaela, sit with another child, all looking happy and confirming that the group is now a true family. The smiling, long-haired woman asks Yuichiro if he thinks the current family relationship is real and if he thinks it's enough. Yuichiro and his younger companion are then shown outside a building in the modern day, with Yuichiro asking what this place is. Yuichiro stares in shock and denial at the woman's question, demanding to know who she thought he was talking about. Yuichiro looks shocked as the female figure suggests he's already challenging her to a fight. The female figure smiles gently, telling him she's the leader but will still be nice to him, then tells him to shake on it. A sound effect of clack accompanies a close-up on the two shaking hands, sealing their agreement. Yuichiro stares forward with fierce determination, clenching his fists and letting out a battle cry. The female leader raises her own fist, telling him to let her feel his strength and prove he's not a monster. She embraces him, calling him Yuichiro, and explains that even though they're one family, she was once alone just like him. Yuichiro looks away with a scowl, coldly refusing the woman's offer of family. Michaela leans in aggressively, angrily asking Yuichiro who needs some stupid family. A small figure is shown retreating in the distance, while an unseen character whispers that they just want another family member to kill them. Michaela glares ahead, stating that his mother went nuts and killed herself after ranting about him being a demon spawn. Michaela then asks Yuichiro if family really doesn't mean anything to him. Yuichiro admits the story sounds awful and, looking slightly empathetic, asks if he wants to hear how he came to the orphanage himself. Michaela looks down with a pained expression as he recalls being abused and later abandoned by both his parents. A memory panel shows a group of children from the orphanage happily welcoming the new arrival, with Michaela's narration detailing the tragic death of his parents and his arrival there. Yuichiro stares in wide-eyed shock and confusion as he processes the painful story. Michaela raises a finger and looks directly at Yuichiro, asking him if he knows the reason why. Despite all the hardship, none of them were sad. In a splash panel showing the orphanage children playing happily together, a speech bubble proudly proclaims their joy at gaining a new, big brother named Yu. A final panel shows a young Yuichiro, wearing the orphanage uniform, staring forward with a determined, though still guarded, expression. In a painful flashback, a bloody-mouthed man is shown holding a knife to a wide-eyed child as the child begs him to stop. A low-angle, wide shot shows the bloody man's large figure retreating down a long hallway, leaving the child alone in the distance. The adult man is back in the present, screaming that he won't be killed by his own blood, as he is confronted by a frantic figure asking if he's crazy. A split panel shows the child from the past walking away from the orphanage in the dark, clutching his small bag and not looking back. An intense, dynamic panel captures the moment of a horrifying, bloody confrontation as monstrous, dark shapes are unleashed upon a group. A powerful long shot, split diagonally, reveals the chaos and destruction as a massive demon, or monstrous entity, is summoned against a backdrop of ruin. A crowd of shadowy, inhuman figures stands ominously over a human figure, proclaiming that the era of humans has ended and a new world has been created. A young child runs down a flight of stairs toward another boy, clutching a book and shouting a greeting. A shadowy figure looms over a shocked child, explaining that the orphanage was just a front for their evil experiments. The figure reveals the human government used the children, including all the orphans, in dangerous experiments to create the seraph of the End Project. Michaela looks at Yuichiro with a desperate expression, urging him to wake up and realize the horrible truth of their situation. In a final, chaotic flash, Yuichiro screams in denial as he is pinned to the ground by a superior force. A child frantically calls out to the main character, telling him they must get out and escape from the danger. The two young boys stand in a doorway, clinging to their bags, as the older boy insists he will save them and they shouldn't worry. A wide shot shows the massive destruction and fiery ruins of the city against the night sky, while an unseen character promises to keep them safe. An overhead shot shows a single figure lying small and alone on the patterned stone ground of a large, empty courtyard. The female leader smiles wistfully as she recounts how the vampires ultimately brought them all down to their world on that fateful day. Yuichiro stares with a determined expression, stating the cold fact that it has been 4 whole years since that horrific event. A group of figures stands around a cooking pot, discussing what their next meal is and deciding they'll just make do with what they can get. Yuichiro walks away with a resolved look, a large sack over his shoulder, as he leaves the group behind. A surprised figure looks at Yuichiro, calling out to him as he declares he's going hunting to find food. The group talks about the need for food, and Yuichiro announces that they will have curry for dinner tonight, with a satisfied smile. Yuichiro stares with a fierce, determined gaze, swearing he will find a way to make the vampires give them more food scraps to survive. A woman looks back at a boy with a puzzled expression, asking if he's surprised they found a black market rabbit for their meal. A woman speaks with a small child, mentioning that she can't find a hunting companion, as the child looks down at a pointed finger and a large building is visible in the background. The woman and 2 children huddle close, with the woman admitting she doesn't know how to make a map, but will try to keep them together. Yuichiro stares with a look of stubborn frustration, complaining that the other boy wouldn't cry, even when he punched him. An exterior shot captures a large, ornate building with shadowed archways and windows, emphasizing the eerie setting of the vampire city. In a split panel, Yuichiro is shown looking out, while a silhouetted figure is dramatically thrown down from a great height toward the street below. Michaela stands alone in the street, wearing a white uniform and looking upward with a somber expression. In a triptych of small panels, a character looks up, a second character replies, and a third figure is shown asleep on the ground. Michaela stands over Yuichiro, offering him his share of the curry and asking why he isn't going to say welcome home. Yuichiro looks away and downcast, conceding that the food was good and that the other children enjoyed it, but denying that he feels any better. Michaela stares forward with a slight smile, proclaiming that their small victory with the curry is still a great thing. Yuichiro stares with a troubled expression as Michaela casually asks why he didn't eat the meal himself. Michaela then leans into Yuichiro with a knowing, triumphant look, telling him that he will spill his blood no matter what. Yuichiro angrily refuses a command, vehemently denying he has to forgive the vampire who killed everyone until he dies. Yuichiro turns away, his face etched with turmoil, as the full weight of his current self-deception and internal struggle settles on him. Michaela lowers his gaze, struggling to put into words the profound disappointment and moral conflict that is tearing him apart. Yuichiro stares at Michaela with desperate intensity, proclaiming he isn't a total idiot and confirming he knows humans can't beat vampires. Michaela holds a finger to his lips, his expression a mix of anguish and secrecy, quietly telling Yuichiro to hush. Michaela leans in, his voice a low, painful whisper as he tells Yuichiro not to say another word, clinging to the belief that the other kids still hold. An intense close-up shows Michaela's pained expression, his mind reeling from the cruel truth Yuichiro has just confessed. Michaela leans toward Yuichiro in disbelief and agony, asking how someone could say they will someday kill the vampires but never give up on them. A larger, close-up panel captures Michaela's utterly broken and hopeless expression, the word hope, trailing off in an empty bubble. Yuichiro turns his head away, a pained expression on his face, as the other characters ask what's wrong and what exactly the vampires did to him. Michaela flashes a desperate, strained grin, simply declaring that he's just kidding to deflect the prying questions. In a final group shot, a character is shown telling Yuichiro to stop talking, and another reminds them they'll be separated really soon. Michaela looks down with a grim expression, clutching his wounded hand and stating that his body can't handle the vampire blood. Yuichiro stares back, telling Michaela he doesn't have to forgive the vampire who killed everyone, and he just needs to focus on revenge. Michaela leans in, his face a mask of desperation, urging Yuichiro to hold still so he can deliver the injection. Michaela pulls back with a worried expression and offers the object he's holding to Yuichiro, who stares with a questioning look. Michaela reveals he swiped a weapon from Ferret's mansion and offers it to his friend, telling him to take a look. Yuichiro looks down at the weapon, which is a plain baseball bat, dismissing it as nothing compared to the gravity of their situation. Yuichiro glares, defiantly declaring that he doesn't care if the man he speaks to is a vampire, only that he would still kill him if given the chance. Michaela lowers his head in exhaustion and quiet despair, telling Yuichiro he's busy and not to talk to him until he's finished transforming. A dramatic, empty shot of a long, dark room is dominated by rows of chairs, with a single, dark figure sitting far away, warning of the horrors within this secret place. Michaela looks up with cold, vacant eyes, questioning the point of looking up all the dark secrets and horrible things he's just learned. Yuichiro answers with a fierce, determined glare. The reason is to grow stronger and personally eliminate all those stupid bloodsuckers. The final, chilling frame captures a character's single, dark eye opening in a flash of awareness as they declare the situation obvious. Yuichiro confirms that a certain someone has plotted everything out and is now big on killing vampires, revealing his own plan of preparation. An unseen character points out the risks of waking up the sleeping figure, but the other simply asks what their motive is now. Yuichiro stares with a look of intense worry, demanding to know what they are going to do about the widespread virus. Michaela stares back with a defiant grin, reminding Yuichiro to remember that they are still only 12, which should make the virus irrelevant to them. An overhead shot reveals a large, ruined space where a speaker explains they have a whole year to figure things out with this new knowledge. A character calmly replies that the whole Hyakuya orphanage family will figure everything out together, despite the terrifying circumstances. A young boy, Michaela, is seen running toward a figure, holding a book, as he shouts that he has to show his friend something. Yuichiro stares at the person speaking to him, his expression one of determination and resolve, as he argues that he can't be defeated if he gets stronger. The boy and his friend stop in a hallway, their faces a mix of worry and defiance as they whisper a plan to save everyone. Michaela turns to Yuichiro, explaining that the orphanage was merely a front for human experiments and their terrifying project. Yuichiro looks up at the ceiling, demanding to know what is wrong and what the vampires are doing to them in this cruel world. Michaela forces a desperate smile, a chilling facade of nonchalance, and tries to dismiss his friend's worries by saying he's just kidding. Yuichiro stares with a determined expression, proclaiming that he can't be defeated as long as he finds a way to grow stronger. Michaela stands alone in the vast, elegant interior of a palace hallway, a small bag clutched in his hand. Michaela glances over his shoulder, his eyes wide with a defiant look as he declares that they are still very close to achieving their goal. He confesses that the vampires never expected them to try and escape because of the virus that keeps the adults contained. Michaela stares out with fierce resolve, noting that the enemy underestimated them, thinking their livestock wouldn't try to escape their high-security prison. Yuichiro's eyes narrow in determination as he repeats the conviction that they will escape from this world. Yuichiro's eyes narrow in fury as he rejects the vampire's proposition, stating there is no way in hell he is giving up his weapon. He leans in with an aggressive gaze, making it clear that he understands the gravity of their situation. Michaela replies with a simple, quiet, "Yeah," his face a picture of grim determination. A small, dark baseball bat is shown leaning against a wall, a symbol of their fragile attempt at resistance. The other children gasp in unison as they realize Yuichiro has a weapon and what the final plan must be. Ferret Bathory appears, grand and condescending, proclaiming that he likes the desperate human boy as a charming little sheep. Ferret eyes Yuichiro with a predatory smile, wondering if he would like to join him for dinner tonight for the delicious blood he requires. He then leans in with a sinister air, presenting a small child as the potential blood source, while Yuichiro stares in pure horror. Yuichiro unleashes a desperate, frantic scream at the vampire to stay away from the innocent child and the people he cares for. Ferret turns away with a dismissive smirk and a casual apology, stating the child is simply too playful for his immediate needs. In a brief, telling exchange, he confirms his attendance and Michaela replies with a strained, formal "Yes, sir." Yuichiro turns to Michaela with disbelief, asking if he is truly going to allow the vampire to drink his blood for some trivial gain. Ferret performs a dramatically exaggerated, almost impossible dodge of the bullet, his long hair flying with the motion. Yuichiro stares with grim determination, his gun still raised after taking his desperate shot at the escaping target. Ferret laughs with a cruel, mocking amusement, telling Yuichiro he'll never hit the monster at such a great distance. Ferret then smiles with a playful cruelty, noting the small pistol and cheekily asking if that's his gun. Ferret then turns toward his mansion, giving a polite bow as he calls Yuichiro excellent and asks if he has enough spirit to resist the urge to escape. With a final, chilling smile, Ferret tells him he will see him soon and floats away into the night sky, leaving Yuichiro alone. An imposing, shadowy figure speaks with a fierce expression, proclaiming that the target now possesses the power to kill all vampires. Michaela and Yuichiro sit close together, both looking troubled, as Michaela struggles to speak while Yuichiro remains silent. The floor of the bare, tiled room is shown in a wide shot, emphasizing the isolation and silence surrounding the two boys. Michaela is seen clutching his head in anguish and clinging to Yuichiro, who holds him tightly in a desperate embrace. A close-up on a foot planted on the ground is accompanied by a loud, guttural argh, signifying intense, sudden pain. Yuichiro stares with a look of agony and denial, yelling out in a frantic declaration that he cannot endure this terrible pain anymore. Yuichiro watches in quiet anguish as the elegant vampire retreats, stating his apology was because the boy was still too playful. Ferret offers a polite bow and a sly smile before asking Michaela if he will be visiting his mansion later that night. Michaela glares back at the noble vampire and gives a succinct, cold refusal. Ferret then offers a meal instead, reminding Michaela of the delicious blood waiting for him at his quarters. With a gesture toward a small, terrified child, Ferret makes a cruel proposition, offering the young life in exchange for Michaela's cooperation. Yuichiro stares in horror, his eyes wide with desperate rage as he screams at the monster to stay away. Ferret asks with feigned curiosity if the young human boy is still being playful, dismissing the matter as a pity. The elegant vampire then turns away, giving his formal farewell and confirming he will see Michaela again that very night. Yuichiro turns to Michaela with a horrified expression, asking if he is truly going to let the vampire drink his blood. Michaela replies with a chilling certainty, confirming his compliance and asking Yuichiro if he has a problem with the transaction. He explains that his compliance is necessary because, in exchange for his blood, the noble vampire will provide him with whatever he desires. Michaela argues that survival demands cunning, and he must be smart and clever to get what he needs from the noble vampire's pedigree. Ferret leans in, his smile predatory, asking if the young boy will be coming to his mansion tonight. Michaela glares back, his response cold and defiant as he tells the nobleman to dip it, sir. Ferret, completely unbothered, then offers a meal instead, reminding Michaela that the required delicious blood is waiting. The vampire bends down with a sinister air, holding a small child and making a cruel proposition. Yuichiro stares in horror, his eyes wide as he screams at the monster to stay away from the child. Ferret turns away with a dismissive, mocking smile, claiming the boy is still too playful for his immediate needs and apologizing for the interruption. Ferret turns his head with a condescending smile, claiming he is sorry because the boy is still too playful. Michaela replies to the elegant vampire with a clipped, formal, "Yes, sir," signifying his reluctant obedience. Yuichiro whirls around with a horrified expression, demanding to know if Michaela is truly letting the vampire drink his blood. Michaela walks away, confirming his submission with a cold question. "Yes, I am. Is there a problem with that?" He explains that as long as he offers his blood, the noble vampire will provide him with anything he desires. Michaela concludes that one must be smart and clever to survive in this world, especially when dealing with a noble pedigree vampire like Ferret. Michaela turns to Yuichiro with a wounded expression, asking what he has done since his blood is boiling in his veins. Yuichiro stands firm, revealing the injection was a desperate drug to amplify human power, not the cure Michaela had hoped for. Michaela recoils, his face twisting with a deep sense of betrayal, stating that Yuichiro is no different from the adults who had previously exploited them. Yuichiro clutches Michaela, shouting that this brutal action is necessary for his protection, even as Michaela begs him to stop the painful treatments. Yuichiro stares out with unyielding resolve, asserting he will endure this painful process 10,000 times if it means saving his friend. He declares that no ordinary human can hope to defeat a vampire through sheer strength alone, justifying his extreme measures. Yuichiro refuses to run away, his voice filled with fierce resolve, telling Michaela he will not leave him behind. He insists they will escape together, repeating his promise with powerful conviction. Michaela clutches his face in agonizing despair and utters a single, desperate "don't." Michaela begs his friend not to waste their deaths, fully believing the current situation is terminal. Yuichiro stares back with wide eyes filled with horror and profound realization, proclaiming that Michaela is his family. A chaotic flash of light and raw energy engulfs the space, accompanied by a final, desperate cry to get out. Ferret turns with a predatory smile, asking if the young man is going to join him for dinner tonight for the delicious blood he is holding. The vampire then gestures toward the small, terrified child in his arms, making his cruel proposition clear to the human boy. Yuichiro stares in horror, his eyes wide with desperate rage as he screams at the monster to stay away. Ferret turns away with a dismissive, mocking smile, apologizing that the boy is still too playful for his immediate needs. Michaela replies to the noble vampire with a clipped, formal, "Yes, sir," signifying his reluctant obedience. Ferret gives a final, chilling smile and floats away, telling Michaela he will see him again that very night. Ferret glances over his shoulder with a patronizing look, dismissing the idea of the boy being playful as a pity. He then gives a formal farewell, stating he will see the boy later that evening to fulfill their morbid arrangement. Yuichiro stares in disbelief and rising anger, demanding to know if Michaela is seriously letting the vampire feed on him. Michaela turns to walk away, confirming his compliance with a question of cold indifference, asking if it presents a problem. He explains that his submission is necessary because the noble vampire will procure anything he needs in exchange for his blood. Michaela asserts that to survive one must be clever, especially since Lord Ferret possesses the noble pedigree of a true vampire. Ferret glares back with a cold, almost bored expression, asking if the young man is coming to his mansion tonight. A final, dramatic shot shows Ferret floating up, telling the boy he will see him soon before disappearing into the sky. Yuichiro stares in disbelief and rage, demanding to know if Michaela is truly letting the vampire drink his blood. Michaela turns to walk away, confirming his submission with a question of cold indifference, asking if his actions are a problem. He explains that his submission is necessary because the noble vampire will procure anything he needs in exchange for his blood. Michaela asserts that one must be clever and smart to survive, especially when dealing with a noble pedigree vampire like Lord Ferret. Ferret gives a final, condescending apology, dismissing the boy as still too playful for his purposes. Michaela replies to the elegant vampire with a clipped, formal, "Yes, sir," confirming his submission. Yuichiro stares in disbelief and rising anger, demanding to know if Michaela is truly letting the vampire drink his blood. Michaela turns to walk away, confirming his submission with a cold question, asking if his actions present a problem. He explains that his submission is necessary because the noble vampire will procure anything he needs in exchange for his blood. Michaela asserts that one must be clever and smart to survive, especially when dealing with a noble pedigree vampire like Lord Ferret. Yuichiro watches the elegant vampire retreat, his expression fierce, still screaming a desperate command to stop. Michaela turns to the figure, his eyes cold and defiant as he simply says no. Yuichiro whirls around with an expression of horror and disbelief, demanding to know if Michaela is truly letting the vampire drink his blood. Michaela replies with a chilling certainty, confirming his compliance with a cold question. "Yes, I am. Is there a problem with that?" He explains that his submission is necessary because the noble vampire will procure anything he needs in exchange for his blood. Michaela asserts that one must be clever and smart to survive, especially when dealing with a noble pedigree vampire like Lord Ferret. Michaela stares down, his face twisted in pain, quietly speaking about the memory he sees every time he closes his eyes. He then reveals the source of his anguish, the cruel, dismissive words of his father who told him he didn't have any family. Michaela then leans close to Yuichiro, apologetically saying he is sorry for the emotional outburst he just had. Yuichiro comforts him, insisting that he knows Michaela is feeling confused but reminding him of their enduring connection. Michaela then sees the image of the vampire's castle in his mind, confirming the dark place is real and still haunting him. He then turns to Yuichiro, his eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and desperation, firmly proclaiming that he is done with this world. Ferret gives a final, condescending apology, stating the boy is still too playful for his immediate needs. The elegant vampire then turns away, giving his formal farewell and confirming he will see Michaela again that very night. Yuichiro stares in disbelief and rising anger, demanding to know if Michaela is truly letting the vampire drink his blood. Michaela turns to walk away, confirming his submission with a cold question. "Yes, I am. Is there a problem with that?" He explains that his compliance is necessary because the noble vampire will provide him with anything he desires in exchange for his blood. Michaela concludes that survival demands cunning, and he must be smart and clever to get what he needs from the noble vampire's pedigree. A figure leans in from the darkness, demanding to know what Yuichiro is rambling about, and if he realizes they are in the middle of class. The frame drops to a piercing close-up of a character's eyes, filled with intense, unwavering determination. A stern figure warns that they won't get rid of the young man if his behavior continues, but admits it will be awesome if they expel him. Yuichiro reacts with an excited and somewhat maniacal grin, declaring that being expelled would be absolutely awesome. A hand extends to touch Yuichiro's shoulder, a gesture of quiet concern that is quickly shrugged off. Yuichiro turns away with an annoyed glance, wondering why a soldier like him is stuck in a normal high school anyway. A mysterious girl sits at a desk, calmly explaining to Yuichiro that she is not his enemy and asking him to calm down. Yuichiro recoils in surprise as he reads her notebook, which details her daily activities as an officer of the Japanese Imperial Demon Army. The girl stares back with a knowing look, insisting she knows what is best for him as she explains the true nature of his current school life. Yuichiro stares in frustration as a commanding figure shouts at him to calm down, emphasizing the ridiculous nature of their setting. The figure leans in with a look of extreme anger, demanding that Yuichiro watch his mouth and cooperate with their superiors. Yuichiro looks back with a fierce, determined gaze, his single spoken word a defiant promise to cooperate. Ferret glances over his shoulder with a condescending smile, saying the boy is still too playful and calling it a pity. He gives his formal farewell, stating he will see the boy later that evening to fulfill their morbid arrangement. Yuichiro stares in disbelief and rising anger, demanding to know if Michaela is truly letting the vampire feed on him. Michaela turns to walk away, confirming his compliance with a question of cold indifference, asking if it presents a problem. He explains that his submission is necessary because the noble vampire will procure anything he needs in exchange for his blood. Michaela asserts that to survive one must be clever, especially when dealing with a noble pedigree vampire like Lord Ferret. An unearthly shriek echoes as the man transforms, his face distorting into a grotesque monster right before Yuichiro. Yuichiro stares at the man in pure terror as the transformation continues in a chaotic flash of light and raw energy. The monster stands tall over Yuichiro, a sudden, horrifying realization dawning on the young boy that this is the director. Yuichiro then stares in disbelief at a photo of the Hyakuya orphanage kids, all smiling innocently together. A horrific wave of monstrous, shadowy figures crashes over the orphanage photo, a symbol of the world's destruction. Yuichiro finally sees the image of the ruined world, now understood as a battle at the end of the world. Ferret glances back, confirming the boy is being playful and calling it a pity. He gives his formal farewell, stating he will see the boy later that evening to fulfill their morbid arrangement. Yuichiro stares in disbelief and rising anger, demanding to know if Michaela is truly letting the vampire feed on him. Michaela turns to walk away, confirming his compliance with a cold question, asking if his actions present a problem. He explains that his submission is necessary because the noble vampire will procure anything he needs in exchange for his blood. Michaela asserts that one must be clever and smart to survive, especially when dealing with a noble pedigree vampire like Lord Ferret. Yuichiro refuses the woman's offer, declaring he will only go with her if he can join an anti-vampire unit right away. The stern woman stares back, reminding him he must be certified to be put into an extermination unit. Yuichiro stares with a fierce, determined gaze, proclaiming his single desire is to kill vampires, and that is all he wants. He slams his hand down and yells that he should be put in a vampire extermination unit already, calling the woman a jerk. The woman recoils, muttering a frustrated "ha" at the boy's relentless and uncooperative attitude. Yuichiro stares out the window at the cityscape, his mind consumed by a singular, intense desire for revenge against the bloodsuckers. The mysterious girl tells Yuichiro he doesn't look for friends or romance because he's too scared to lose them again. She leans in close and sternly tells him not to talk about someone she cares about as though they were mere objects. Yuichiro stares back with a hard, defiant expression, saying he's strong enough and telling her to put him in a vampire extermination unit instead of lecturing him. The girl's partner is shown, agreeing that this is precisely what Lieutenant Colonel Guerin expected, so he gave her the assignment. An angry figure grabs the girl's collar, screaming at her to fail and calling her a pathetic liar. The group looks on, one person laughing as they all wonder why Yuichiro is acting so differently from a soldier. Ferret smiles with cruel amusement, asking if the young man is going to join him for dinner tonight for the delicious blood he requires. He then gestures toward the terrified child he holds, making his sinister proposition crystal clear to the human boy. Yuichiro stares in horror, his eyes wide with desperate rage as he screams at the monster to stay away. Ferret turns away with a dismissive, mocking smile, apologizing that the boy is still too playful for his immediate needs. The elegant vampire then gives his formal farewell, confirming he will see Michaela again that very night.